Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Side Tellers. Today is October 24th, 2018. We are at Status Network on live TV, Atlanta, Georgia, and we have a special guest today. You guys are in for a great treat. So be sure to get your numbers ready to dial. So if you have any problems, any issues, any concerns, any questions for your family, for your spouse, for anything on the job or pertaining to your children, just any dilemmas and you need some life coaching and you need some assistance, then we have a great guest here in the house, Mrs. T.G., well, affectionately called T.G. Affectionately called T.G. But the name, and I want to get it right because it's a beautiful name, it's relatively odd, the second part, Tracy Gantlin Monroy.
You got it.
Tracy Gantlin Monroy is in the house. Let me just read a little bit about her initially. I want you to get everything, the information that you need to have on Miss TG, Miss Tracy Gantlin Monroy. Tracy Gantlin Monroy, affectionately called TG, is a licensed professional counselor and visionary that drives Grace Community Counseling and Social Services, LLC. She's a fierce proponent of soul care, mental health, behavioral health, and is dedicated to not only treating individuals, couples, adolescents, family systems, and groups, but also educating them about the issues affecting their quality of life. TG is personally involved in the training and development of all the group facilitators and service workers at Grace Community Counseling, Community Counseling and Social Services, LLC, to ensure every participant client receives the highest level of treatment and care and opportunity to actualize their lives, discovering healing needed to overcome the circumstances of divorce, career change, family, relationships, stress, depression, anxiety, self-discovery, and life circumstances. Tracy Gantlin Monroy is equipped from a faith-informed, charismatic, out-of-the-box perspective laden with philosophical underpinnings sure to meet your emotional, mental, behavioral needs with practical interventions to assist with actualization of your personal and family goals. Isn't that exciting? So she can help you in any manner that you need. And again, welcome to Side Tell Us, where we showcase businesses pertaining to restaurants, medical care, medical need, community, political, anything, any type of business that we offer here in Atlanta, the surrounding boroughs or counties, countries, whatever you want to call the little bitty country towns. We are here to serve you and to publicize your business. So we as a people, we can all participate in this village and help each other and continue to patronize each other. And we can do all of those things. So Miss TG, tell us how you first initially got started. Tell us the who, what, where, when, and how, please.
It's all a trick question, but I will do my best.
Oh, I know you'll do well.
Well, I'd like to say that I, from an excited perspective, chose this field, but that would just be a lie. So I would have to say that this is absolutely a call and not a job or a career. Kind of fell into it. My career was actually as a licensed broker. And one thing led to another, whereby I answered the call, went through the whole Bible college thing, the seminary thing, and I was assigned at, it's not McNair High School, Benjamin E. Mays.
Okay.
Not far off of Cascade.
Okay.
Through a ministry in context requirement. And I went into the school. This has been about, I guess, 10 years ago or so.
Okay.
And I went into the school and actualized culture shock. You know, you hear about it, but to experience it is a whole different thing. And I saw a difference. It used to be boys that clowned for girls, but it was opposite. It was inverted. The boys were actually standing on the wall watching the adolescent girls perform for them.
Okay.
And I found out and realized that boys aren't the aggressor.
Really?
The girls really are.
Really? In today's society, or just
Yes, ma'am.
Really?
Yes, ma'am. It is the girl that pursues the boy. It is the girl that has found a voice. It was different, you know, from my generation.
Mine as well. I was going to say, because I would never approach a guy. That is something we were brought up to never do. A lady never approaches a gentleman.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, and even if you watch the news and follow the news, when you look at a lot of the situations whereby boys have been accused, and then the story comes back, hold on, it wasn't really that way.
Yes.
You know,
I believe that. I can honestly say that I've seen certain news stories where, and I know you've been taught this, and you probably have it in your own ability to decipher and analyze people's body language and all that. But it pretty much every time when I would see someone and, oh, my child, they drowned in the car, blah, blah, and, oh, my husband died, and what they said didn't match their emotion or their body expression.
it was incongruent. We call that incongruency.
Exactly. And I could tell, I said, well, you know what? She killed him. It's going to come out. And they killed the babies, and sure enough, they did. I forget years ago, some woman had drowned her 3 children because her new boyfriend didn't like her children. And then, of course, the husband or the wife, whoever the opposite, was dead. Their emotions just didn't match what they were saying and feeling. So I can definitely understand what you're saying when you mention that. But it's amazing how, I guess this is my grandson, because he has questions for you from a child's perspective. Say hi to everyone, Cameron.
Hello.
And but it's amazing, but I've been out of touch for, I guess, a decade and a half of dealing with, you know, boys and children interactions like that. So that really surprises me that girls are more aggressive than the boys.
Oh, roles have definitely changed, and from the time I was stationed at the school, because I more or less kind of shunned the whole helping profession, and if I were to be honest, I shunned ministry as well. Excuse me, I didn't want to deal with church people, if anybody know what I'm talking about. Nonetheless, being stationed at that high school absolutely informed me that there's a great need. We hear a lot, we see a lot, but let's be clear. From working as a mentor with many of the kids, I was even shocked to find that there was a makeshift type police holding room in the school. And this was some years ago, but it was quite different from my experience in high school. But I'm almost 50, so times have changed tremendously. You hear a lot about the different generations, but it's like the dominoes aligned. And so I ended up, after completing my Master of Divinity, I ended up at Richmond Graduate University, which integrates the clinical aspect of counseling with theology, religion. That type of situation, which worked out famously for me, although I felt lost during my time because it was a different discipline for me. Nonetheless, I would have to say, how do they say the Word of God speaks about obedience? Is better than sacrifice.
Yes, I can believe that.
And so when the Lord calls, the best answer is, I'll go, yes, whatever, because God doesn't call those who are qualified. He qualifies those he calls. And I believe that, and I'm a proponent of that.
And because they're obedient.
I don't know how obedient I was. It was probably more fear and trembling, understanding God to be God and God's own self. But I'll tell you, upon entering the field and going through all the gyrations to include the composite board, I have not ever felt more at home in this profession, literally.
Wow, that's a treat within itself, to truly love what you're doing and feel that comfortable with it and within.
It's a blessing. It truly is a blessing to know that you're affecting lives one by one, family by family, and being a active, working proponent of community. I just couldn't think of anything greater.
That is excellent. So, how long have you been in this profession?
Actually, I was licensed in 2012.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so relatively recent.
Second career.
Okay.
Second career. And the fascinating thing for me has been the experience, because you always hear that doctors are practicing, clinicians are practicing. They can teach you that theory, but a lot of times that theory doesn't really support you much when it comes to the national exams for licensure, because you got to be able to apply. That learning in some of the scenarios are like, what?
Hold on, we have a caller. Hold that thought. Okay,
Sure.
let's continue on. Thank you for calling SciTellus. You're on live TV. State your name and what city you're calling from, and what question do you have for Mrs. TG?
Hi, yes, good evening. This is Cece calling from Bronx, New York. How are you doing this evening?
Oh, we're doing fine, Cece. How are you? And thank you so much for calling in. And what is your question for TG?
Yes, this is for TG. So I'm actually a social worker, a clinical social worker. And so I'm interested in knowing, because I have not worked with children in this capacity. I've worked with families. But I'm just wondering, what are some of the common threads that you've noticed in working with children in the school system? Is there like a lot of trauma that they've experienced, or just behavior issues? I know a lot of times they want to label our young Black children with having ADHD, ADD. So I'm just wondering, what is some of the common threads that you're seeing?
Well, that can be addressed from a cultural context, socioeconomic context. That's a widespread question, but this I will say. Because it sounds like you're talking about African American or Black kids in particular.
Yes.
Okay. So here's the deal. And it varies depending on the resources that are available, which can be county by county, state by state. I've worked in and out of the schools now for years. And the major issue with a lot of our children, you ready for this?
Yes.
Their parents.
I believe that.
Their parents.
I'm always saying that.
And let me qualify that. Let me qualify that. There is nothing more valuable to a child than authenticity. We have children that were born out of love, and we have children running around here born out of hate. We have babies that are born who don't know who their fathers are. And in some cases, their mom. So what happens with parents is this. They parent out of this pseudo knowing called instinct. And much of one's quote unquote instincts are somehow formed and tempered by their life experience. I don't know if it makes any sense what I'm saying.
No, it does. It does. Because I work with adults. I specialize in persons with severe and persistent mental illnesses, and who are duly diagnosed as well. So a lot of them, have children that we have to call ACS, things like that. But even with the adults, there's a lot of trauma there, and also often it's passed down to the next generation, unfortunately. So yes, I am.
8 out of 10 people will experience trauma within their lifetime. And the reality becomes, according to the individual, what trauma looks like. Trauma even changes the shape of the brain. So let's be clear. So trauma for some could be a vicious accosting or assault. And trauma for some could be as simple as the person you hold highest and dearest speaks to you as though there is no humanity. Let me give you an example. Prime example. We all decipher information differently according to our context and our experience. when you look at the components of the brain, when you're dealing with children in particular, the part that's responsible for the cognitions, decisions, things of that nature hadn't even fully developed and won't be until they're about 23 to 25 years old. So now you add to this mix, because you're a social worker, so you're all about family dynamics and family systems, geneograms, tracing it back, bringing it forward. Now, most people parent out of how they were parented. You start speaking to them about empirical data and the fact of you have got to demonstrate respect to gain respect. Then they come with these colloquialisms about a child need to stay in a child's place. Well, I'm curious to know, what is a child's place? Because we are within a time, first time in history, that children are teaching their elders.
Exactly.
It's technological age. And so when you start talking about these diagnoses, the way I work is this. I work with teenagers, children, young adults, and adults. And what I'm finding is the major issue is a disconnect in communication. People are poor with communication skills. They don't understand that the decoding has everything to do with the encoding. The person that's the person that's sending the message is the actual encoder. The person receiving those vibes, that energy, those words, that tone, that temperament becomes the decoder. Now, depending on your own context and experience, that message can look very different depending on who's decoding it.
Exactly.
Right? And so
from their experiences.
And so now when you start talking about the diagnoses, right? Understand marginalized people of color were viewed through a pathological perspective up until the 1970s. I was born in 1970. So in other words, for marginalized people, even from the medical perspective, psychological, sociological constructs were viewed through the filter of something is wrong with you and your people. That's not what I'm saying, and that's not my opinion. That's written. That's a fact. So when you start talking about maladaptive behaviors and symptoms, that speaks louder to me than a diagnosis on a paper. And what I mean by that, if you look at our children, many of them do have a lack of focus, lack of concentration, can't sit still. Now, some cultural competency must also come into play because
exactly.
Right? And because for me, being a mom of a black boy of Hispanic descent whose dad is from Guatemala, it would throw me. The kid is brilliant. But this kid would be tapping and beating and rocking and doing and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But he would get it. He would get it. I will never forget that the way he learned even multiplication was by kind of bebopping a little bit. He had his own rhythm. He couldn't do no rapping. But with that, you know, African influence, Hispanic influence, baby boy got movements, right? And so more importantly than what we learn is how we learn. And I think it's so limited of the pedagogical styles that are being used to teach our children. You know, because I know here in Georgia, if you don't fit the cookie cutter look of what a student is supposed to look like, kids are labeled all the time as a distraction. Oppositional. Right? I see more teachers yelling and screaming in the schools than I see that are conversational. And let's understand, kids have feelings too.
Yes.
When they're young, when they're little, when they're from that pre-K on through those elementary stages of development, they find their identity in their mom, dad, auntie, uncle. But here comes big time middle school, where there's a huge transition because these kids now find their identity in their peers.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes all about wanting to feel and be accepted. So just journey with me for a moment. If you're a kid, you're at that middle age, middle school stage of development, and you want to be accepted, that's going to go one of two ways. Either you're going to feel accepted for excelling, or you're going to feel accepted in a negative way, right?
Exactly.
By being class clown. Because what's the goal?
Mm-hmm.
Acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And for every behavior, there's a payoff for the person who's doing it. So it's not just a kid thing, it's a people thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I'm responding to your concern, your question, or what have
No,
you.
Yes.
No, you are. Thank you so much because because I look at it, because again, I work with adults, so I don't really work with children other than, having to call ACS. So, but thank you for sharing that. I'm just wondering if you have a social media page, because I would love to follow you.
Okay, so here's the deal with this social media stuff. I'm 48, I'm almost 50. Okay, I contracted with a marketing guru at the behest of one that styles me. And here's what I'm finding. What's going on with Tracy Monroy is simply this. I have worked in community. This June will be 7 years, and for me, that's the number of completion. If anybody's following that.
Congratulations, yes.
Thank you. And so I have opened my private practice.
Amen.
Okay.
Congratulations.
I will shout out, thank you. Ashe, thank you.
My son is an Ashe.
Hey, the ancestors you better recognize.
Yes, exactly.
So my website is www.gracecommunitycounseling.com.
Okay, I would definitely check your website out. Thank you so much for sharing. I want to give other people a chance to call in, but thank you so much for the great insight.
My pleasure.
And congratulations again.
My pleasure.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much for calling in, Cece. I always have said, at least the past 15 or 20 years, I don't blame the children for their behavior, I blame the parents. Because they set the tone, they set the standard, they invent the bar, and that path in which the child, the child must follow. I don't blame a child's behavior unless there is a mental issue.
Well, it's not either or, it's and both, right?
But again, and I'm not just a blind grandma, but he's well-mannered for a reason. You understand what I'm saying? And the educational system had nothing to do with it.
First teachers
and I can
at
tell
home.
you are a very mannerable young girl as well. And
well, thank you.
I can tell that. You see what I'm saying? You wouldn't have gotten as far as you have in life professionally had you not been obedient. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure we did a couple of little small, minute things, but being dishonorable and respectful wasn't one of them for both of us, nor for him. So when I see ill-mannered children, and your child is in and out of the little boy-girl's home and all this, and, oh, I don't know what to do with Billy. You can't start raising a child at 14 and trying to teach them manners. You've got to start when that toddler is trying to step up and walk around the little coffee table to hold on, and just a little bit. The discipline begins there. The honor begins there. So I just like to hear certain people, especially those of your caliber and profession, that agree with me, because again, I haven't majored anything like that. But again, you'd like to hear someone say, yeah, I agree to that, and it's not just an agreement, but it's been what's the wording that I'm looking for? It's been It's part of being taught and how you were educated to get your degrees and all of those things. So my thing is that, like you said, it's not the problem of the children, it's more so the parents.
Well, and
nothing pertains to all.
Let me say this for clarification, right? Parenting is by far not the easiest job ever made for human beings. But I will say this. I say not either or, but and both. Because at the end of the day, most parents do the best they can.
But some of their best really isn't acceptable nor good enough, and they're doing a disservice to the child as well.
I hear that.
You see what I'm saying? So I understand when you say either or, but again, we have to hold ourselves accountable for what our children are becoming. We can't blame it on TV. We can't blame it on these games. I don't let him watch certain things during the week because guess what? His schedule's filled. He's on the football team. He's in the band. He's making straight A's. There's a reason for that.
Well, so, I gotta say this. I gotta say this. A great deal of our families live with limited resources. And to involve a kid in what used to come free at the rec center when I was a kid.
And in elementary, junior high, and high school, they would let you use those instruments.
It's a small mint. To even take a family of 4 to a date to the movies, upwards of $60 to $75.
Oh, and 100 or more in New York. I just moved there 6 months ago. Yeah,
it's expensive. When I say it's not either or, it's and both, because parents have an appropriate role, so as their children. Now, I'm not limited to young adults and children. I also work with adults. I work with males. I work with females. I work with the whole family dynamic and individuals. And part of the challenge, and this is just the way I work, I don't hold people accountable for anything I haven't taught them. When we start making assumptions about what someone knows, that's as bad as comparing ourselves to others. Because once you start looking around the room and comparing yourself to others, perception isn't really reality.
Well, no, and I don't want to convey that I'm trying to use that I was doing that are in comparison at all, because we should never compare ourselves. I'm just talking about the responsibility of any parent or guardian, and whether you are rich or poor, it is your responsibility. I was struggling after my first divorce, was happy after payday when I had $5. Saying all that to say, I was poor, but my children weren't rude and a bad disciplinarian problem.
Now that I can agree with.
Be poor,
I
absolutely
agree with that.
You know what I'm saying?
I absolutely agree with that.
So of course my life got better once my kids came grown. Why? Because I wasn't financially responsible for them, and the laws just simply weren't in place then to help me get child support as they are now.
Got it.
You will send people to jail and lock them up and garnish those paychecks. Those laws just simply didn't exist. I'm a few years older than you, okay? I'm happily 54. So my thing is, we didn't have what all the things that they have available today. We just don't. So that's all I'm saying is that, again, we can be poor as dirt, but these people raising these kids, I don't care what your problem is, but you said something also as well too. A lot of us are raising our children based upon how we were raised, and sometimes those teachings weren't accurate. I didn't want to duplicate everything that I was raised with. Unfortunately, some of those things I did intertwine. Exactly. But I've learned better, and I know better now. They'll call back. But I just think in today's society, and another thing that I noticed too, a lot of the children have such problems because their parents are so young. They're twerking more than the children are.
Now, I don't know about you, Miss Side, but I still try to get my little twerk.
No, I do too, but I can't.
But I'm not competing with a youngster.
But we do it,
I know my role in place.
And we do it respectfully and gracefully so. Look at how we're dressed even. You see what I'm saying?
And I want you to put a cursor there after you get this call, because I want to.
Okay, they hung up. They'll call back.
Let me say this. It's all about appropriation.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's all about knowing your audience. Close your ears, young buck.
Wait, let me put them on. Thank you for calling SciTellus. This is SciTellus. You're on live TV at Status Network. Please state your name and what city you're calling from.
Oh, hello, this is Mark. I'm calling from the Metro Atlanta area.
Oh, hi, Mark. Thank you for calling in. And what questions do you have for Mrs. Tracy Gantlin Monroy today?
Oh, okay. Well, my question for Tracy is, I heard her mentioning about kids and, attention span in teachers. Actually, I'm an educator myself. Throughout most of my career, I taught adults, but last year I taught middle school students at a charter school. And, I experienced some of that, I had some students who were very attentive. Some were the complete opposite. I had students who literally threw themselves on the floor in class. So, I got, quite a variety. Now, I teach at a high school, and I don't really deal with as much of that. But I was just wondering if you could speak to a little bit about, I feel that perhaps somehow, I don't know if a lot of cell phone usage, some of the other technologies have somehow contributed to decreasing the attention span of children these days. How do you feel about that?
Well, look, professor, teacher, I honor you because I'm going to tell you something, buddy. I'll tell anybody, I can't take more than 10 of them at a time. So you being in the classroom and giving that level of service to our community, ashe, brother. Because let's be clear, technology has a great part of it. Cell phone usage, text culture is about lost. You ask a kid to read a book, why would they be interested in reading a book after mom and dad done put them to the video game as the babysitter and the first teacher? I don't know if it's making any sense what I'm saying.
Of course it is. I get it.
And the reality becomes that the brain responds to however you train it.
That's true.
So once you sat at all these graphics and these bells and these whistles, how is a book going to inform you or even gather your interest?
Very good point.
And so we get to train the brain. And so not only technology, let's go to nutrition. When I hear a kid say they don't eat vegetables, or better yet, I'm in Georgia, what that is? No offense, Georgians, my native peach. I'm a transplant Georgian now. No offense. But let's be clear.
They do have that dialect.
It's not either or, it's and both. There are a multiplicity of variables that go into this knowing. And so what happens with each individual, we got to narrow down and do the rule out. Because sometimes our kids behave the way that they do out of two things, genetic code and environmental stimuli. Do you know that environment impacts many more than genetic code?
I believe so. I can see that. Because key word is environment. Whatever you're around, you pick up birds.
Yeah.
You just pick up whatever you're being exposed to more so than what you were inherited through genetics.
And you just said a key word. Most of our kids nowadays, if you're not talking about what they're interested in, they don't hear you. And this whole concept, learn by doing. Not knocking teachers, because I thank God for teachers and some of my favorite people in life. I'll never forget. 4th grade, Miss Brinson. I'll never forget. Through middle school, high school, college, that was my solace. A lot of my exposure, I was reared in the suburbs. My folks had a little piece of change. My mom built truck engines for Cummins Engine, and my dad was a longshoreman and an entrepreneur. He was going to run them limousines, and he was going to chase them ambulances, because he knew that 6 kids was at the crib.
I know that's right.
And I'm almost 6 feet tall, so we wasn't eating, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So exposure is the key. I watch schools spend all this money for this technology that never reaches the children, but you scared to take them somewhere to show them that the world is bigger than their community. The world is their community.
Exactly.
The teachers end up with the better apparatus, machines. Then they scurry to bring them back when it's audit time. Come on. See, these little jokers, I do my best with them because Miss Tracy ain't going to always be jiggling like this. She going to get old. And I'm going to need these children of today who will be running this society to help an old girl across the street. So it's called paying it forward. And so many of us, if it's not happening in our house, it's non-existent. But drive out there in your fat car and tell me what's up when they put the gun to the window and tell you to get out. And they got the car and you still got the bill. See, so these kids are community kids. I don't know if what I'm saying is helping at all, but there's so many variables as to the behaviors that we're experiencing. And I am calling parents to accountability because the reality is, I know you got to work. I know sometimes there's only one parent in the home. But what I am saying is, why you got to wait till you get 6 or 10 of them to figure out that this thing ain't easy?
Ooh.
See, because part of what you operating on is stuff that happened to you that you couldn't tell nobody. Because if you look like me, there were more family secrets than family truths. And we carrying and pulling this low red wagon.
He said preach.
And half of it ain't even yours. So what you walking in shame for about stuff that don't even pertain to you? See, in
And
our
have no control over.
None. In our community, it's taboo to speak about mental health, behavioral health, and I'm sick of it.
Yes.
Because I'm watching people suffer unnecessarily. When you come see a licensed professional, if not me, it need be somebody.
No, come see Tracy
Right?
Gantlin Monroe.
My goal is that you get the support and the help that you need, because the reality becomes depression, anxiety, the traumas you went through because granddaddy did what he had no business doing. Matter of fact, mama did what she didn't have no business doing. Daddy did it, right? And here you are trying to carry all this by yourself. Understand, when you step through the door of my office or any other licensed clinician, we are bound by HIPAA laws. We are bound by confidentiality.
Yes.
I'm not your girlfriend. I'm not your boo. Okay? I'm a licensed professional here to assess you, to see what kind of goals you want to reach for yourself, and put you in a cradle of safety as we move you from the top brain to the midbrain. Because see, this is where you're storing at. But we're going to get down here so we can change some behaviors, because counseling is about awareness. Therapy is about behavioral change. And it hadn't been long that we've had options of who you want to treat you, who is culturally competent to know, because you talking loudly don't mean you angry. I'm just saying.
Wow.
I'm just saying.
You are awesome.
She's talking
Well,
loud right now.
thank
She's
you.
not mad.
Oh. I love what you said. We as a culture it is taboo for us to go to get therapy. And as you said, and if you're looking like us, there are so many countless secrets in all of our families, mine and everyone else's family that I've known. We all have secrets. And then we carry around all this baggage, never getting healed, never getting counseling. And we take it into our marriage. We take it and abuse our children verbally, physically, emotionally.
Unintentionally. Let me put that out there.
Unintentionally, of course.
Yeah.
And then, and we may die unhealed.
Unnecessarily.
And because I'll be the first one to admit, my mom, God rest her soul, as a black people, oh, you don't go to a psychiatrist, don't ever do that. Because back then it was just a psychiatrist in the 60s and 70s. But now there are therapists and all of that, and coaches and everything, different titles. But yes, you're so right. As a black culture, we've been brainwashed to not get healed and to keep secrets. I'll put it out there, molestation and all those things in the family. You've got to come back for a follow-up, because this is just the tip of the iceberg of an appetizer as far as I'm concerned, because your knowledge is so vast, and I want my listeners to hear more topics of discussion like this. I really do. I mean that, because you are just awesome, and we as a people, we need to be healed.
Part of the call for me is education. We don't know.
Yes.
We don't know. Part of the reason I started doing my women's group, and even this Saturday I'm having a fireside chat with
Is it
the
open to the public?
therapist. It's open to the women public, and the fireside chat this Saturday is free from 10 to 12. And on November the 10th, I'm also having a group by the title Imperfectly Perfect, dispelling the Wonder Woman, Superwoman myth, because it's a myth. And that's women only, but brother, I hear you on the phone that called. I have not thrown away men. I love men. I love African American men. I love Hispanic men. As my mother say, he make them, I pick them. Okay? So it's not that, but what I'm finding is part of my call is to stop the hemorrhaging. And I don't know if you know this from a cultural context. Without the black woman, there would be no black community.
It sure would.
So I got to go to the head to try to, you know, get some of this stuff right.
Exactly.
You know, because we're giving birth to these kids that don't know their identity as a human being. You know, not valuing themselves. Then they go to school, they get the clowning. The teacher got the lesson plan. The teacher's spending more time managing the classroom than they are instructing.
Oh, of course. I've been seeing it, seeing that for years.
It's
My
problematic.
Mom, yeah, it is. My mom was a retired educator. She was the head of the English department, and she got out. She was going to teach a little bit longer, but she'd already done 30 years. But she noticed these personalities were changing and kids were becoming disrespectful. She said, I can't deal with that. But she was born in 1925, so you know they were used to being totally obedient. Positively but negatively impacted. She was growing up in the era of children should be seen and not heard. But again, her grandfather literally was a slave. So, you know, she just wasn't used to any disrespectful behavior in the classroom. And when someone says something inappropriately to her, she said, okay, that's it.
Let's be clear. Since you mentioned slavery, you know, I come from a social justice bent. We ain't been free 300 years yet. I'm just saying.
I believe that too. I've been saying it the past really 15, 20 years. We're just in a modern form of slavery. And of course, we're not saying we're racist. My grandson here is mixed race. My one ex-husband was white. You know, so, but that's not.
It's not even about racism.
It's not. It's about being unfair
facts.
and being treated unfairly. Because when we're underpaid, and then you bring someone in for me to train, but yet you won't let me be promoted to that position. To me, that's a modern form of slavery.
I get it.
You know,
well, see, we can go there from a gender perspective because my whole deal is this. The reality, the fact of the matter is when you have people who are not that far removed from trauma, maltreatment, and many have not taken the time to unteach, to reteach, or unlearn to reteach. And so the behaviors that you're gonna see is what we're seeing in the classroom, what we're seeing in our society. But there's so many variables that we can't just narrow it down to one, but I just want you to know that I am available. I am culturally competent.
Of course.
And depression is common nowadays. People don't even know they're depressed.
I think people need to actually be given a true definition of depression. I really do. You know, to start it off, because again, we only know what we've been taught and are exposed to. I believe that. But right quick, tell them again what event you're having Saturday, the time, and the location, and the fee, if any, and then the other one you said that's coming up as well. And you guys don't forget you can rewind and hear this on our TV show here because we're gonna have to wind it up in a moment. So,
this Saturday, which is the 27th, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we're having a free fireside chat with the therapist. It's women only. A lot of the topics get a little aggressive sometimes for mixed company.
Honest.
Women only.
Well, it's honest.
From 10 to 12.
And the address?
777 Cleveland Avenue, Southwest, Atlanta, Georgia, 30315. It's the Summit South building, you guys, across from the Walmart on Cleveland.
And what is the suite number?
Suite number 301.
Okay.
And then November the 10th.
Okay.
There is a group for women. It's $40 per person. You can actually find both of these events on Eventbrite.
Okay, okay.
And I also have a group of women on Meetup, which is under Soul Care. You'll see my picture and all of
so
that.
you're part of the meetup.
I'm a part of the Meetup.
I used to participate in
group.
those in New York, but I was trying to get involved in something here in Georgia, but I hadn't really signed up yet. So great, that's a great networking.
Yeah,
there.
my events can be found on Eventbrite as well as Meetup under Soul Care.
Okay.
And you're welcome to come. You're
Okay.
welcome to contact me.
Now, quickly, the one that costs $40, is that just the fee to get in? Does it include luncheon?
It
thing?
includes
Okay.
you will be a participant in the group of Imperfectly Perfect.
Okay, okay.
And appetizers and beverages will be served. Actually, we're going to have pastries and coffee Saturday at the Fireside Chat with the therapist, which is free here in the building. And then on the 10th, it's from 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. And we will definitely have beverages and food
Same
and things.
location?
Same location
Okay,
because
so
we're
both
doing the
events are at 777 Cleveland Avenue Southwest here in Atlanta, Georgia, Suite 306.
01.
3001. Okay, great. So you guys, you can rewind that. We're going to have to close it up, and we're going to have to invite him back because he had a question, but we'll get that next time, okay? We really appreciate you being here and being so obedient and mannerable. Cameron, my loving grandson.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for. But Tracy Gantlin Monroy,
I am
you
sure.
are a jewel.
Well, thank you.
And I thank God I've met you, and I thank God you've been on my show, and you're going to be back. I want to follow up within, if not 4 weeks and 6 weeks, if your
Let's
schedule
do it.
permits. I don't think I'm doing much Saturday, but I want to be here Saturday because I need to be there because we all need a little therapy. Even when you think you don't, we need something. We need
Even
guidance.
the therapists have therapists,
Oh,
y'all. They don't want to
exactly.
tell y'all.
Exactly.
We do the same things that cosmetologists do, like cosmetologists do each other hair.
Exactly. Okay. So you guys, you have a good evening. Thank you for calling Cytelus. And then again, Status Network, we're having a media mixer, and it's going to be from 3 to 6 p.m. What date is this? I don't see the date on here. November 11th, again at 777 Cleveland Avenue, Southwest Atlanta, Georgia, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. November 11th. Come be a part of it. Get in contact with Miss Tracy Gantlin Monroy. Thank you guys so much. Have a good evening.